The story starts in a hospital where our MC is playing games, but he is bored of every game. Then he finds a game called Dungeon and Stone on a forum. It's a 2D pixelated game, which he doesn't usually play, but since it's free and he's bored, he decides to give it a try. It's a rogue-type game where if you die, you have to start over from the beginning. Without noticing, he plays it for hours and becomes addicted. He plays it everywhere he goes for 9 years. Finally, after 9 years, he reaches the final boss room. After opening it, he receives a notification that the tutorial is complete. Suddenly, a light emanates from the screen, and he is sucked into the game world. He opens his eyes and finds himself as a barbarian, standing in the coming-of-age ceremony where barbarians choose their first weapon before entering the dungeon. He is shocked and wonders what is happening. Suddenly, a barbarian near him shouts, "It's the game! It's Dungeon and Stone!" After hearing that, the barbarian chief arrives and asks who shouted. The MC points towards the player in fear. The chief approaches the player and chopped his head off and announces that he was possessed by an evil spirit. Realizing that if he stands out, he will die, the MC faces a problem. He doesn't know his name. If he doesn't go when called, he will die. He starts to think of an idea and comes up with a plan. If someone else doesn't respond within 2 seconds, he will act. After some time, a name is called and no one responds. So he goes up on the stage and luckily he gets it right. It was his name. Finally, he discovers his name is Andel's son, Bjorn. With his years of experience playing the game, he chooses a shield as his first weapon because it offers the most survivability. After everyone chooses their weapons, they select their leader, Venom's third son, to guide them towards the dungeon. Because everyone that have gone through coming-of-age ceremony will enter the dungeon. However, after some time they get lost on their way. They decide to choose another leader, Feneline's second daughter Aner, but even she gets lost. Seeing their intelligence, the MC decided to help them and suggests her that they should follow other species to reach the dungeon gate. Aner likes his idea, and they start following other creatures until they finally reach the dungeon gate. However, upon reaching the gate, the MC starts feeling fear, but he have no choice but to go inside because all the citizens of the city need to pay taxes starting from the age of 20, and failure to do so results in execution. Since he is a barbarian, it is impossible for him to find a normal job, and the labyrinth only opens once a month. So he has to go now, but his feet aren't moving because of fear. Then Aner gives him some encouragement, and also thanks him for helping earlier. After that, he gathers his composure and enters the labyrinth. However, instead of transported to the start area, he is transported to an area with complete darkness. Just as he took a few steps, a trap set by a cunning goblin snapped shut beneath his feet. Pain coursed through his body as he began to bleed profusely. The goblin, reveling in its victory, shadowed Bjorn's every move, eagerly awaiting his impending demise. Aware of the goblin's presence, Bjorn feigned weakness and collapsed to the ground, his breathing shallow. Seizing the opportunity, the goblin threw a rock at him, testing to see if he was truly dead. Confirming his suspicion, the goblin approached Bjorn. But Bjorn, despite his injuries, mustered his strength and launched a surprise attack. In a fierce struggle, he emerged victorious, and the goblin's body disappeared. Leaving behind a 9th grade magic stone, a highly coveted and valuable item in this world. Yet, its worth was equaled that of a mere piece of bread. Despite his victory, Bjorn's wounds continued to bleed profusely, posing a grave threat to his survival. Desperate for aid, he forced himself to keep moving, dragging his injured body across the unforgiving ground. Hour after grueling hour, he fought against the encroaching darkness, his resolve unwavering. The brink of death loomed near, but he refused to succumb. Finally, a glimmer of light pierced the darkness, signifying an exit from the treacherous depths. To his astonishment, a party of seasoned adventurers emerged before him. Seeing his dire condition, they stopped, their captain demanding the assistance of their healer. However, much to their dismay, the healer refused, unwilling to use her limited holy power on a stranger. Undeterred, the captain turned to another party member, asking him to give a healing potion. Reluctant due to its cost, the party member initially refused, but the captain, demonstrating his leadership, promised to repay the debt in due time. Relenting, the party member handed over the potion, and with careful precision, poured it onto Bjorn's injured leg. Unbeknownst to many, potions in this world inflicted a searing pain when used, making them impractical for use in the midst of battle. The healing process was arduous, but Bjorn endured the agony, his wounds slowly closing under the potion's influence. Grateful for their aid, the captain inquired how he had arrived before him. He wondered if there was a hidden shortcut he had missed. Bjorn, tell them what happened, after listening his explanation. The captain explained that such occurrences were exceptionally rare, happening only once or twice every 100 years. Bjorn couldn't help but reflect on his ill-fated luck. With their paths diverging, the party bid him farewell, and Bjorn resumed his exploration of the illuminated area. With a renewed sense of purpose, Bjorn ventured forth, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger or opportunity. He knew that the light before him marked the beginning of a new chapter, brimming with challenges and untold treasures. Armed with his resilience, honed skills, Bjorn prepared to face whatever awaited him in this enigmatic realm. Little did he know that his journey had only just begun, and the trials ahead would test him in ways he could never have imagined.
After his near-death experience, he kept running into goblins. They keep coming. At first he was nervous, but after some time, goblins are no threat to him, and traps are randomly placed in the open. The only problems were food and water, because the food he got from the deputy chief was lost when he was crawling on the ground. Only 2 days' worth is left, and the chief did not give any water, so he has to find it in the labyrinth. So he starts searching, and after some time, he finds the water, but there was already someone else there, but he left himself. After that, he drinks water and started counting the magic stones he collected, and there were 44 stones, and now he started to feel tired and started to feel sleepy. There are 2 ways to sleep in the labyrinth. First, live your life in the god's hands and sleep, or second, find allies to protect each other. He tried the second option, but everyone got scared because of his looks and all the blood all over his body. Then suddenly, the man from before comes and asked him if he is looking for an overnight companion. After hearing that, MC got angry. Then he explained that he thought that they could take some sleep while protecting each other. Then MC understands that it was called an overnight companion, and he thought he was saying After that, he agrees, and they play rock, paper, scissors to determine who will sleep first, and MC lost. So the man gives MC a watch and asks him to wake him up after 2 hours. After 2 hours, MC wakes him up, and now it's his turn to sleep, but he can't believe in a stranger. So he pretends to sleep to see if that man does something, but he doesn't do anything. After 2 hours, they change turns again, but MC is frustrated because he didn't get a single minute of sleep, and he was so sleepy that his eyes closed, and MC falls asleep. Then suddenly, that man wakes him up. MC apologizes to him and offers him more time to sleep, but that man refuses. So MC takes his turn and starts sleeping. After some time, that man comes and attacks him with his hammer, but MC blocks it and says he knew that there is no one that kind in this world who forgives and does not take the offer to sleep. They fight, and MC defeats him, asking him why he didn't attack the first time he slept. That man answers that because he also needs sleep. Then MC asks why he attacked him, and the man answers that it's because of his stone, but MC doesn't believe him and attacks him again, asking once more. That man explains that it's because of his heart, and tells him that a barbarian's heart is used for new magical research and sold for a good price. After saying all of that, he starts begging to be let go. Everyone in this world thinks barbarians are stupid and naive. Most of it is true, but our MC is a human inside a barbarian, so he kills him and takes his items. He have many items, like potions. MC starts to think that after only a few hours since he came to this world, he killed someone, and only after killing a man, he is now living like a man. After that, he started to hunt again, and goblins started to come in pairs because it's the second day, but it's not a big problem for our MC. He hunts for 14 hours, but now he started to feel very tired and needs sleep. Because of the previous incident, this time he chose the first option and tried to sleep alone, hoping goblins won't come, but goblins keep coming. After some time he just closed his eyes, but a goblin attacked him and just missed MC's neck because of height. After that, MC becomes frustrated and decided to find another barbarian, But instead, he meets many humans this time who want to become his overnight companion. Maybe because this time he is looking good and didn't cover in blood. But he refused them all and told them that he is looking for another barbarian. Then one man tells him that it's going to be hard to find because most of the barbarians quickly go up to the second floor. Then MC realizes that it would be embarrassing for someone of their build to struggle on the first floor. So he starts to look for any race other than human to become an overnight companion, because every race has a special trait other than human. After some time of searching, he finds an elf. She was injured and afraid. Then MC goes there, and she instantly starts to beg him to let her live. Then MC tries to comfort her, but she gets more scared and says that even if he is a barbarian, let her live just once because she has a younger brother to take care of. Then MC starts to think about what barbarians do. So to make her let her guard down against him a little, he gives her some healing herbs and some bandages he got from the men from before, and asks her to treat her wound first while he stands guard. After she finishes treatment, he introduces himself, and she also tells her name, Irwin. Then he asks her why she is so afraid of him. She tells him that he is a barbarian, and barbarians and elves had a very big war in the past, and now they are hostile towards each other. She says she doesn't care about this, and asks him to let her go. MC didn't know about it. All he knows is that elves and barbarians have a good relationship, so he does not know which timeline this is compared to the game he plays. Then he tells her that he also doesn't care about it, and asks her to become his overnight companion. I know it sounds weird. After thinking for some time, she agrees, but asks him to make an oath on his warrior's honor that he will not harm her, and she also makes an oath in the name of her tribe. Then both make the oath to not harm each other. Then our MC decides to sleep first, and she agrees. So he gives her the pocket watch and asks her to handle it with care because it's expensive. At first he thought that he would pretend to sleep for 10 minutes, but he instantly falls asleep. Then after 2 hours she wakes him. Then he realizes that it's all because of the blanket and the bag, and if Hans, the man from before, lent it to him, he would definitely die there. So he decides to lend them to her, and just like that, they both take a few turns, and now there are only 10 minutes left before the last turn.
Then 2 men came there and asked Bjorn what his relationship with the elf was. He told them they were overnight companions. Then they asked how much time was remaining. After hearing that, Bjorn told them it was none of their business and that he was not obligated to tell them. He scared them away, and they left. After that, Bjorn tried to wake up Irwin, but she pretended to sleep. Bjorn forcefully woke her and asked why she was pretending to sleep. She answered that if she got up, he would leave her because their partnership would end as soon as she woke up, and he would leave her alone. Then Bjorn asked her what happened with those 2. She answered that she didn't know them, but they were probably from the same group called the Crystal Union as the human who tried to hurt her. After hearing that it was a whole group, he first thought of parting ways, but this beautiful elf was only 20 years old, and that was reason enough for a man of culture to help someone. So he decided to help her and asked for her full story before deciding. She got really happy and told him that she had met them on the first day inside the labyrinth as overnight companions. And when she was sleeping, she felt a gaze behind her. Only later did she find out that he was a manager of a clan doing business on the first floor, and somehow she managed to escape. Since then, they had been chasing her. Then Bjorn asked how they were able to chase her in the labyrinth. She told him that they were probably using message stones, which allow communication when synchronized prior to usage. Their range is up to about 300 meters. It was a device that didn't exist in the game, so he was a little shocked. Then Bjorn asked her why the members of the Union continued to chase her, when it didn't seem like she had done anything wrong. She told him that while escaping, she swung her knife around and accidentally cracked one of the assailant's ears. Bjorn felt bad for that man, and she was laughing while telling him all this. Suddenly, she felt someone following them from behind, about 150 meters away. It was an ability of elves they are born with, so they decided to increase their speed, but the distance between them didn't increase. Bjorn started to think about the risks he was taking and the benefits. Well, I think we all know the benefits of helping beautiful elf. So he asked her what she was good at. She gave a great answer fitting for the situation. She said that she was good at laundry and cleaning but bad at cooking. I just want to ask what is going on in her head at a moment like this. Everyone, what do you think? But just don't go overboard with it. Then he asked what she was good at during battle. That she was good at archery and could also use spirit magic, specifically flame element. Flame element is actually the rarest element in this world. Then he asked her if she had killed anyone before. She answered that she hadn't, but she could do it. Then Bjorn asked seriously if she would like to become his comrade until they got out of the labyrinth. He would take 90s, and she would get 10. He didn't even finish his speech, but she instantly agreed without any hesitation. So Bjorn decided to get rid of the pursuer because the distance between them was getting shorter and shorter. He decided to enter a dark area where they waited for the pursuer. After he arrived and started searching for them. Bjorn ordered her to shoot the arrow. She was a little nervous, but she shot the arrow and got a headshot. MC sure was smart. He didn't kill the man himself. Irwin was in a little shock, so he gave her some encouragement and started looting the men. There, he found the message stone Irwin had been talking about. After that, Bjorn checked the loot he got from the man he just killed. He had a pouch of magic crystals, 2 daggers, 1 potion bottle from his waist belt, and the clothes he was wearing, a leather top and bottom. Bjorn sure was a scavenger, and I like this kind of Bjorn story. Then MC asked Irwin about how to use the message stone, and she told him that there was a button on the side. After Bjorn pressed it, a voice came from it, and there was someone giving everyone instructions and asking them to catch the elf and the barbarian with full instructions. He also placed a 10,000 gold bounty on their heads and asked everyone to gather at the Goblin district, which was where Bjorn and Irwin were currently. After hearing that, Irwin got scared, but MC asked her not to be scared, and they moved up to the 2nd floor. After hearing that, she asked if they were really going to the 2nd floor by themselves, as there was a huge difference between the 1st and 2nd floors. Bjorn said he knew it, and told her that they would just stay near the entrance, and they were also a good match. She got flustered after hearing that, but she still hesitated to go to the 2nd floor. Then, suddenly, a voice came from the message stone, saying that whoever found the elf first could enjoy her first on top of the 10,000 gold. Then another man's voice came, saying that if she was too resistant, could he cut off one of her arms and legs. Then that man asked if they should just leave the important part, and he asked if they all knew what he meant, right? After hearing all of that, she immediately agreed to go up to the 2nd floor. This makes Bjorn's work easy and saves his time. He always likes to help people in need when it is beneficial to him, of course. When a chance like this comes, of course, he will take it. After that, Irwin asks Mick about the path to the 2nd floor. Bjorn said that he doesn't know the specific path, but the dungeon is designed in such a way that if you keep following the darkness, you will reach a portal, since the darkness represents a path that leads you to the upper floors. Suddenly, Irwin stops Bjorn because there was a trap. After seeing the trap, Bjorn remembers the dark past and that he just walked a few steps before stepping on one, but they only appeared now after so late. Then he realizes how unlucky he was. Then Irwin asks Bjorn to let her handle it, and he should rest. Then Bjorn told her not to use spirit to save strength. With her clumsy look, you can understand what she is going to do. After that, she goes near the trap, and suddenly 2 goblins attack her, but she was ready in counter. Attacks them and kills the first goblin. Then the second goblin. Then the second goblin tries to attack her, but she quickly finishes him too. After that, she gives both stones to Bjorn according to the agreement of 9-1, and she seems very happy about it, saying there's something her younger sibling has been asking for. And if they keep progressing like this, she can earn a little bit too, right? After hearing that, Mick feels like she is trying to insult him. I also feel the same. But she's got a point there. Then a voice from the stone comes again, saying that they are raising the bounty on the elf to 20,000 gold, dead or alive. After hearing that, Irwin gets scared again. Then Bjorn asks her not to worry, and says there's no one who will search in the dark for them. And these bastards don't have the best teamwork. That's all he said to her. But inside his mind, he was thinking that it's suspicious, that all things are going too well. He was just thinking, but suddenly, Irwin shouts, "There are ghouls." After seeing them, Bjorn starts to think, how are the ghouls here? On the first floor, there are different monsters based on the direction you go, and ghouls are supposed to be in the south. They've come too far after roaming for so long, but actually, it's a good thing for Bjorn. Maybe you guys are thinking about what level Ma currently is, right? To know that first, I'll explain the experience awarding system for the dungeon in stone. You are only awarded for the first time you defeat a monster of the same species. But if they are from a different rank, you can also gain experience. For example, if you kill a goblin and a goblin chief, they are both considered different species, and you gain experience from both of them the first time you kill them. Meaning you need to defeat as many species as possible in order to level up, so Mick is just level 1. And by the way, a personal question, I'm also thinking of making a similar game, but in 3D, of course. So can you guys tell me which platform I should create it on? The mobile version will have lighter graphics compared to the CC version. Also, tell me all your ideas about gameplay and everything else. And if you guys want, I can make another channel where I'll share my progress on it. Now, let's get back to the story. Irwin said she will handle it alone, but denied it, asking her to cover from behind. After Bjorn comes within a certain range of ghouls, they attack him. And why is their hair like melting cream on top of a cake? Well then, the fight begins. And it was a piece of cake with Bjorn's power and Irwin's artillery. After that, they keep walking towards the north until the 3rd day. Then Irwin sees blood on the ground, and it was not Goblin's blood. After following the blood trail for some time, they find a sandal. And I think everyone knows about the dark past of Mech. After seeing that, the portal was less than 10 meters away from his starting point, and if only he had gone in the other direction. Just how much bad luck does he have? Because anyone who opens the portal first to the 2nd floor gets 2 experience points. And as I told you before, you can only earn experience points 1 time from the same species, so it's very hard to level up. But you can earn these experience points every time the labyrinth opens, and it becomes a kind of race. That's why the team who saved Bjorn on the first day asked him about it. Thinking about that makes him very angry, and seeing him like that, Irwin asks him if there's something she did wrong. Then he says it was not because of her. After that, she comes to a conclusion that Bjorn lost his barbarian comrade here, so she gives him some sympathy. Bjorn gets confused, but he decides to ignore it, and they go up to the 2nd floor, the Goblin Forest. But their landing is not a smooth one, for Bjorn, of course. Irwin lands perfectly. After Bjorn recovers from this unfortunate experience, they look around, and there is no living being in a 50-meter radius. The 2nd floor is different from the 1st floor. While the 1st floor is like an underground maze, the 2nd floor is an open forest, and there are 4 gates in 4 different directions on the 1st floor, and each gate leads to a different place. But you can go to the 3rd floor from any of them. Just tell me, what's with the ghouls? Others look good, but ghouls look like ice cream is melting on their heads. After that, Irwin asks Bjorn what to do now. He tells her that once the time is up, which is 168 hours for the 1st floor and 240 hours for the 2nd floor, the labyrinth spits the explorers back out into the city. So they will stay on the 2nd floor before the 168 hours are up, and then they go back to the 1st floor. But they can't just stay here by the portal all day, so they start to explore the nearby area a bit. Soon after some time, Irwin finds a trap, but Bjorn didn't see it. Then Irwin throws a rock at it to deactivate it, and then she asks for praise from Bjorn. But Bjorn just says that she is good at throwing rocks, and it was always her duty to find the traps. McSure is a Sigma. Let's talk about the second floor a little. Traps on the second floor are different than the first floor. They are well hidden and are all over the floor, but there is no goblin watching over them. And other than traps, another difference is that the goblins go around in groups of about a dozen, sometimes with warriors or archers. And there are more high-ranking monsters the farther you go towards the exterior of the forest. Continue the story. Bjorn and Irwin started exploring the goblin forest, destroying traps in their way so they wouldn't cause any trouble later when monsters attack. Soon, Irwin heard footsteps of the goblins and asked Bjorn what to do. Bjorn asked her about the number of goblins, and she answered that she doesn't know the exact number, but it's more than 10 for sure. After hearing that, he decided that they will attack them and asked Irwin how close they can get without being noticed. She answered that on her own, she can get to about 30 meters away from them. Then, Bjorn said that they will go with her plan. First, Irwin goes near them and shoots the first arrow. Then Bjorn will attack them. However, the second floor is different. There are 3 times the amount of goblins from the first floor. And there's a goblin warrior too. Yes, this guy with the knife-like sword is a goblin warrior. And it should be scary face so many goblins to gather. But instead of being scared, Bjorn's warrior's heart was twitching. He was feeling excited. It reminds me of the Overlord manga where Ainz's emotions automatically get suppressed. With this sense of excitement, he started to crush them one by one, but dealing with the goblin warrior isn't easy. He almost chopped Bjorn's head off and surrounded him with other goblins. The situation became quite threatening, and he might also get injured, but that's if he was alone, of course. But with a trusted partner like Irwin, his back is covered, and he quickly finished them all. He gained 1 experience point for defeating the goblin warrior for the first time, and 11 magic crystals. But the warrior's weapon and armor disappeared with the goblin. The warrior stone has more value than a normal goblin of the same rank. So he decided to give Irwin 2 normal stones. She looked very happy, and after that they started moving again. Once they went farther out than a 3-kilometer radius, they began to come across goblin groups every 5 minutes. This time, there's an archer among the goblins, and as soon as he saw them, he disappeared using stealth magic. It became difficult because of the goblin archers. But it wasn't enough to defeat Bjorn. He just had to focus a little more to dodge the arrows coming towards him, and he easily defeated the goblin archer. After 15 hours of fights, they decided to take rest. And Bjorn gave Irwin the first chance to sleep, and she instantly fell asleep. Then Bjorn started thinking that explorers are scarier than the goblins, especially now that he has a reason to be worried, and it's a problem that she's so pretty. He said it out loud, and Irwin woke up instantly and asked him if she is really pretty. But Bjorn asked her to sleep. Well, it shows that she was not stupid and is always on her guard. And just like that, the 4th, 5th, and 6th day passed, and it became the 7th day, the last day, and it's finally time to leave the labyrinth. Bjorn told Irwin that it was finally time to leave the labyrinth. There were only 2 hours and 47 minutes until the first floor would spit the explorers back out. Irwin told Bjorn that she's so tired that she will immediately fall asleep as soon as they're out. Bjorn told her that they should go back now because they should get to the portal earlier rather than late. Of course, things would get a bit tricky now, because the goblin groups had respawned and put down new traps all over the place. Irwin also sensed a goblin group 70 meters away from them with 8 regular goblins, 2 archers, and 2 warriors. Bjorn decided that they will fight. Goblins were just chatting and laughing. And just like before, Irwin shot from afar and popped one of them in the skull, leaving the other goblins stunned. Then Bjorn charged in with his fierce look, scaring the goblins, and he started his attack. He knew that Irwin would take care of the archers, so he focused on killing the warriors first. Bjorn had become a master at fighting goblins, swinging his hammer around and hitting them all to their death in each shot. Irwin also got used to it. She knew exactly when and who to shoot. And because of that, the time it took to kill all the goblins had shortened. He praised her and told her that she did a good job, and she loved having Bjorn's approval. But he told her to tell him when she kills the archers so that he doesn't have to worry about getting shot while fighting. She apologizes and tells him she wasn't sure if the last one was hit or not. He is a bit confused, but agrees that unconfirmed information would be more dangerous. While Irwin just smiled and waited for a response. He was thinking about how much he's grown. He's actually kind of proud, but I doesn't know who he is proud of. To me, it looks more like self-appreciation. Suddenly, Irwin calls Bjorn's attention to something cool near a dead goblin. Its corpse hasn't fully vanished yet. Rather, it has a blue aura around it. Bjorn notes that this essence particularly belongs to the goblin archer. Essences are a part of the skill system in Dungeon and Stone, which gives you passive and active skills with varying stats, depending on the essence's type. There is only one essence allowed per level, but it is kind of like a cheat. It's one of the most valuable treasures for an explorer, and there will always be a limit to how many essences you can absorb. He remembers his early days of playing the game, and recalls how each goblin has a different ability attached to their essence, and your fate will depend on which essences you take. It has a near 0% drop rate, and he never expected to see it here. He was speechless as they stood near it. It feels too good to be true, and he senses something bad might happen. Then our weird but cute Irwin asks him if she would become a goblin if she ate it. Bjorn tells her that she wouldn't, but she would earn a part of the goblin archer's abilities. He tells her how the guy who was chasing them on the first floor had taken a razor mane wolf's essence, which gave him the ability to track their smell. He asks her if she wants the essence, and she says she doesn't really care much, but she will take it if Bjorn doesn't want to take it. Bjorn doesn't care about the goblin archer's essence. He's a barbarian, and he already knows what essence he wants, and this essence would be useless to him. So he tells Irwin that she can have it, but she must promise him something. This is something he was originally going to tell her once they got to the first floor. But right as he was about to speak, they were interrupted by a man calling out to them. It's a group of explorers. He tells our protagonist not to move a muscle. Irwin asks him what he means and mentions that they were just hunting, but Bjorn knew the true purpose of these people arriving. He puts his hands on Irwin's shoulders and says she doesn't need to answer them. Irwin looks confused for a moment. Right then, Bjorn throws her into the goblin archer's essence, and she lands directly on top of the essence, and a bright light emerges from the essence, covering her. The man, who looks like he's from Naruto anime, starts screaming out of rage because Irwin ate the essence and is now fusing with it. He claims that the essence belonged to them. Irwin stands up and leans her back against Bjorn, thanking him for the essence. Bjorn knew that he would eventually run into people like these. People who wait until they see an opportunity to grab something from unsuspecting explorers. However, they couldn't do anything about it now that Irwin had absorbed it, and it was gone forever. Bjorn took a step forward and told them to come at them if they wanted a fight. He was confident, showing no fear as he looked towards them. He knew they were at a numerical disadvantage, so they needed to show confidence and boldness. That group started getting nervous, looking at the oversized barbarian with his hammer in his hand. He sure was intimidating. He told them he was ready for a fight if they wanted one, but if they were scared, they could back off. It looks like we're going to see some real fight very soon. But for now, we have to wait because that group decided to go from there. But before they left with a warning to Bjorn that they will come. After that, Bjorn and Irwin start running towards the portal, and Bjorn tells Irwin not to stop until she reaches the portal. She runs at the fastest speed she can while asking Bjorn if the four from earlier are gone, or whether they'd chase them. Bjorn remembers how they threatened him that he would get revenge for the essence, and even if they didn't follow them, they would probably end up in the same place, which confuses Irwin. Bjorn tells her that they were a party of 4, which is a good number for a second-floor raid. But they were loitering around the entrance, which means they were planning to go back to the first floor and leave the labyrinth, just like them. They were doing the same thing as them, and Irwin appreciates Bjorn's ability to think critically. Well, for others, he is a barbarian after all. As they run, Irwin senses a group of goblins 50 meters away from their location, and Bjorn says that they will avoid them. However, Irwin tells Bjorn that they can't run because the goblins are coming towards them. Bjorn is shocked to hear this, because the goblins hadn't found them once during the past few days. So how did they find them now? He wondered if this was a coincidence. So they decided to go in the opposite direction. As Bjorn made a quick turn, Irwin was agreeing with him, but suddenly an arrow comes flying towards her. Bjorn grabbed her by the shirt and pulled her backward, but the arrow wasn't from a goblin archer. She says she was going to dodge it herself, and Bjorn says that it's the guys from earlier who shot at them. He tells Irwin that they lured the goblins to their location, and they're waiting on the opposite side. They were planning to tire them out with goblins, and now they had no choice but to fight. He told Irwin to use her powers. She is confused as to what powers he means, and he tells her to use the essence's power that she had acquired by eating the goblin archer's essence. You see, every essence has its own special ability, and since Irwin had absorbed the goblin archer's essence, it would give her special powers. It would increase Irwin's stats in many ways, as you can see on the stat window. Alongside that, it adds a passive and active skill, which can be quite useful in situations like this. She had gotten a passive skill that made all her arrows poisonous, while also giving her an active skill that made her stealthy. Irwin tells him that she doesn't know how to use it, and he just looks at her and tells her that it's already working. Irwin begins to glow blue with the essence surging through her body. She can finally feel the powers of the goblin archer. Her active skill thief step was now in use. Bjorn looked at her and wondered whether the skills work just by willing them, or did they need to say something to trigger it. Meanwhile, Irwin is just enthralled by her new powers. He hands her his bag, telling her to keep it safe. He was going to handle the goblins on his own, and she can look for the guy with the crossbow. Irwin is worried for Bjorn because it would be too dangerous on his own. However, he doesn't care at the moment. He tells her that there is no time to think. He tells her to stay hidden, and when he gives the signal, she must kill the guy with the crossbow. There would only be one shot. After that, he runs into the forest towards the goblins without even telling her what the signal would be. After some time, he stops, because goblins were surrounding him from the left while rushing into the goblins headfirst. Bjorn notices how those guys haven't shown themselves since they shot at them with a crossbow. Early on, he assumed that they would show themselves once he killed all of the goblins, and he began the killing spree. Blood splatters were everywhere as Bjorn was killing the group of goblins. There were a dozen of them. 2 of the goblins were swordsmen or warriors, but there were no arrows flying towards him. There were probably no archers, or so he thought. But an arrow comes flying his way, so he blocked it with his shield, and he now knows there were archers too. Then he felt something pierce his back. It was a goblin with a dagger who stabbed him from behind. He threw the goblin off and bashed its head in with his shield. He was fighting the goblins to the best of his abilities. But he also remembered the crossbow guy was there too, and he didn't have Irwin to help him this time. The injuries were piling up as they were cutting Bjorn up. It was looking like the attack on Titans. But he didn't let up though, as he slammed his hammer onto the goblins and killed them all. They turned into smoke, and he realized that things were getting a bit too dangerous for him. Suddenly, 2 arrows shot in his direction at once. He had to dodge them, but he realized that they were both different markings. One belonged to a goblin archer, and the other arrow was from the crossbow guy. It was impossible to block both arrows, and now he had to pick and choose which arrow would be more dangerous to get hit with. So he decided to block the crossbow bolt, and as he blocked it, the goblin arrow had pierced through his elbow because he simply couldn't have blocked shots from both sides. His arm was wounded and bleeding, not to mention the goblin arrows seemed to have been poisoned. His arm was turning purple, and he couldn't feel any movement within it. He only had his right arm, and he needed to choose between his weapons now. So he let go of the hammer, knowing it wouldn't be much help. He pulled the arrow out of his elbow and chose the shield. It was his original weapon. He knew that the real enemy was that group of scums. If it weren't for them, the goblins wouldn't have been much of a threat to him. He could easily kill goblins with the hammer, but the shield was necessary to protect himself from those crossbow bolts. Bjorn kept slamming into them with his shield. He was flinging them around like they were nothing, sending them flying far away with each hit. But it was not enough. Eventually, he had enough, and he got angry. As he gave the goblins an angry look, the remaining goblins began to run away. As they ran away, Bjorn had one slight moment of rest. He managed to hold on long enough, and he knew he didn't have to chase them down. The group started to emerge from the bushes. They were hiding in there for too long. Their leader smiled and looked smug. He respected Bjorn for getting rid of all of those goblins on his own. He found it impressive and quite unexpected as he walked out with his two other companions. The crossbow guy didn't come with them, but he noticed and asked him the whereabouts of Irwin. With anger, he just tells them to come and fight him. Then their leader says that it is truly impressive that he still has energy despite fighting all of those goblins. However, he was sure that Bjorn was severely injured by this point, and gives him the option to tell him where Irwin is, and they would let him go. Bjorn smiles. He wondered if they thought he was stupid, but Bjorn, laughing, annoyed them, and they decided that they should fight him first and torture him later for the answers. He tells his crew not to let their guard down, even if Bjorn is injured. They were going to take this fight the same way as they would while hunting a giant monster. They decided to rush and attack Bjorn as he held his shield up, ready for their attack. But his situation was dire. His left arm wasn't moving, and he was going up against 3 explorers. He wondered whether Irwin found the crossbow archer yet, but he needed to send the signal now. But he knew that the signal had to be something unique, something that this world's people would recognize. He knew what he had to do. He smiled as he raised his poisoned arm up and showed them his middle finger. As he put his arm up, he looked very pleased with the signal. Well, it's a good one. What do you think will happen if Irwin got confused with it? As all of you know how clumsy she is. I also have a story, a dark fantasy one. So I just want to know how much darker I keep it. It is going to be similar to Remonster. But if I make it too much darker, I have to create another channel for it, or I release a novel with a darker version and video with a lighter version. Please tell me. Okay, let's get back to the story, guys. As Bjorn's middle finger was raised up high, his mind was racing and worried as he wondered if Irwin had recognized the signal yet, because she's far away. Of course, the red-hair man and his crew didn't know what this meant, and this confused them. While they were confused, Bjorn had no choice but to trust her. So he charged at his enemies with his shield. He rushed towards them, but their leader stopped him by slamming his sword against his shield. Feeling Bjorn's strength, he began to be undermined, so he called his samurai friend for help. While Bjorn was focused on him, the samurai came in swinging his sword, slashing at Bjorn's shield and pushed it out of the way. Bjorn could feel the power of the samurai warrior, but he knew that he couldn't back off. So he decided to be aggressive towards the samurai, but the samurai easily dodged his attacks. However, hitting them is not his original goal. He wants to distract them to make an opening for Irwin. In the midst of the fight, he couldn't help but worry about Irwin. He was worried that she might have been defeated by the crossbow guy. But as he fought, an arrow came flying from behind them. It surprised everyone because it was a crossbow arrow, and it was coming towards their leader. But it was blocked by the shield guy of their team. The shield guy told his squad to focus on Bjorn, and he would focus on blocking any of the arrows coming their way. Both of them rushed towards Bjorn. Bjorn stopped the attack of the red-haired guy with his shield, but he had no chance to fight against both at once. As the samurai guy ran towards him, ready for a killing blow, Bjorn knew what he had to sacrifice. So he protected his back with his left arm, though the poison had already made it useless for this fight. His arm had a huge cut on it now, but he exchanged it for the leader's head, slamming his shield into Redhair's face and sending him flying. So it wasn't a bad trade-off. The samurai guy tried attacking Bjorn, but he dodged it. Then an arrow came flying towards the samurai, and he was shocked. But the shield guy came and blocked it. But he didn't know that the archer they were up against had a fire spirit on her side. Before Bjorn could do anything, another arrow came flying and pierced through the unshielded guy's shoulder. After seeing that things were not looking good for them, Redhair decided to run off and go after Irwin. Bjorn wanted to go and stop him, but he knew he couldn't risk going after Redhair, so he decided to trust Irwin to deal with him herself. He locked his feet into the ground and attacked the samurai guy with full force, but the samurai dodged it at a last moment. However, the samurai was not Bjorn's target from the start. He was aiming for the shield guy. Now, it was just Bjorn, and the samurai left standing. They clashed again, but Bjorn could see that the samurai was trying to buy time for Redhair to come back, so he decided to finish it in one shot, even if it was dangerous. He pretended to swing his shield, but instead he threw it towards the samurai's head, hitting him hard. But if he missed, it would become dangerous for him. Now, he grabbed the samurai guy by his collar, and Bjorn knew that he didn't have much strength left and was about to die if he messed things up. So he lifted him up and pulled him towards his face and literally bit his tongue out of his neck. The barbarian rage had taken over, and he was moving off of pure instinct for survival. Now, both of Bjorn's opponent's bodies were on the ground, and he was left standing alone. Irwin came running to him from behind, tears in her eyes because she was worried about Bjorn's safety. She also killed both of her opponents, and now they had both survived the game of survival one more time. This time, it got a bit too close for comfort though. As Irwin saw how wounded Bjorn was, she handed him a potion, telling him to drink it immediately. Bjorn was confused because he didn't know that people can drink it. She told him it's better to drink it than to pour it on your wounds, and since he was poisoned, it would clean up his insides too. Bjorn chugged the vial of healing potion and dropped it on the ground as he sat there healing. He could feel his insides boiling, his entire body burning in pain, and his veins were itchy and hot. That's the reason why people pour it on the wound instead of drinking it, even if it has more benefits. While Bjorn was healing, Irwin was next to him, encouraging him. Then he asked her how much time was left. Irwin checked their watch and told him that it was 11:20, which meant that they had 40 minutes until the first floor closed. They did not have any time to rest despite the fight. Then Bjorn asked her to strip, and she had a regular reaction for her standard akos. She was thinking that he was doing it so suddenly, so he must have a reason for it, and she started taking her top off. Or I was just thinking too much. She is the same Irwin we know. Then Bjorn asked what she was doing, and told her that he meant stripping the bodies of the dead guys for items and resources. But now that they had only 40 minutes, Bjorn decided to just take their equipment, magic crystals and backpacks. They didn't have time for other things. So Irwin went to get Redhair and Crossbow Guy's things too. They had only 34 minutes left when Irwin came back with all the stuff. After that, they ran through the forest at top speed. There was only 1 minute left, but they got to the portal of the first floor, and then they jumped into the portal. They managed to come back to the first floor in time. Irwin rejoiced in their success. She had lots of fun. Meanwhile, Bjorn still wondered how she managed to land perfectly every time. She told Bjorn that he did a great job. Then he told her that she did a great job too. Then she leaned in close to Bjorn, asking him what he wanted to say earlier before. But there were less than 10 seconds left before the labyrinth closed. So he told her that they should talk once they were back in Rathonia, but they would both emerge at different locations. So they had to choose some spot for meeting, but Bjorn forgot the name of the tavern. There was no time left, and he was scratching his head in rage because he couldn't remember the name of the tavern. Finally, he remembered and told her to meet him at the Black Whale Tavern once they were out. She happily agreed to it, and their time together in the labyrinth ended. The labyrinth began to close, and he was being transported back to Rathonia. Bjorn emerged back in the city filled with explorers. Now the story is going to be more interesting, my horny friends. But for now, he was back in Rathonia amidst the hustle and bustle of people. It's a place filled with a tremendous amount of people because all the explorers are gathered in one place. But for now, he began to reset his clock because time in the labyrinth flows differently than in the city. No matter how many days you spent in the labyrinth, once you come back to the city, it's always noon on the next day. And you have to reset your clock so that it points to noon. I was curious about one thing. If no matter how many days you spent in the dungeon, you come out the next day and the higher the floor, the more days it takes to close, does it mean you age faster compared to the person outside? Or does the age of the person inside the dungeon not increase? Think the second option is more reasonable. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Let's get back to the story. In the crowd, he saw a tall barbarian calling out to him, and he wondered what this guy's name was. As the two men shook hands, Bjorn remembered his name as Vanon's second son, Karak, but he was actually the third son. Well, Bjorn always does that. Then another one came, and he was glad to see both safe. This guy's name was Serum, and the name reminded me of something. What about? After that, within a moment, a crowd of barbarians gathered around, surrounding Vanon's second son, Karak, talking about their experience in the labyrinth. He sure was a popular guy, but Bjorn didn't seem to be happy about it. They were having a whole reunion, but I didn't see Aner anywhere. Maybe we'll see her in the future. For now, one of the barbarians challenged Karak to a duel, and Karak accepted it, which was a celebratory barbarian thing. So they all decided to head out to the bravery checkpoint, where they could get their magic crystals counted, as well as talk some more and share their experiences as they walked away. They asked Bjorn if he was coming with them. It didn't really seem like he wanted to, but he obliged anyways, because what else could he do? At the register table, a lady was counting all of the magic crystals. Some had 20,000, some had 30,000, and at the end, Vanon's third son, Karak, stood above them all with 40,000 magic crystals. Everybody was cheering for him, calling him the warrior of warriors. Then Bjorn walked up to the register and dropped a bunch of bags on the counter. The cashier lady began to calculate. She was so fast that Bjorn was left shocked. After the count was done, it turned out that Bjorn had 182,413 magic crystals. Hearing the numbers, Bjorn was also in shock. After hearing that, they gathered around him and started cheering for him. They also noticed his equipment and bag and started saying that they were jealous of him and that he was a true warrior. All of them were truly happy for him. He was being lifted up and thrown in the air by a crowd of barbarians. And he enjoyed that moment. But people started to complain about it. So the squad decided to hang outside of the checkpoint while some of them stayed inside the building to get their magic crystals counted. As they sat on the steps, Bjorn decided that he should follow all the other barbarians because there might be something left to do that he doesn't know about, and he doesn't want to take the risk of getting exposed. So he would wait for them to return and stick with them. In the distance, he saw a group of elves hanging out. In that group, he saw Irwin. She was talking to her friends about how she learned to control spirits, and they applauded her. Bjorn felt envious because she hung out with that sort of crowd. But he was surrounded by the savages instead. He noticed that she looked at him and waved stealthily from afar, trying to hide her connection with him. He quietly told her to meet tonight, and she agreed. Then the elf lady asked Irwin if she knew him. She denied it immediately. Meanwhile, the same happened to Bjorn. Karag asked him if he knew the elf, but Bjorn said no. Of course, barbarians are free, spirited and loud, and this guy straight up shouted that there's no way a #1 warrior like him would hang out with those cowardly earheads. This pissed off Irwin's friends, and the mood became tense all of a sudden, but she didn't escalate the situation. Bjorn was annoyed, but thankfully, the rest of the barbarians came out of the building. So Bjorn got up, telling the other barbarians that they should leave now that everyone's here. On the way, he noticed a child calling out to his father. The child ran up to his father and hugged him. They told each other that they missed one another. This was also a feature in the Dungeon and Stone game. Anyways, there were moments of joy once you came out of the labyrinth. People would meet their families and friends. However, there were also moments where people would die, and the repercussions of that could be felt. A woman cries to her husband's companion, begging him to tell her where he is. But the companion can say nothing because her husband had died. Another moment happens where a woman is crying as a little girl innocently asks her mother where her brother is. These moments of agony and sadness couldn't be felt throughout the 2D game graphics. But now, seeing it in real life, his feelings were in chaos. After some time, the barbarians raised their mugs to drink the night away, pouring liquor down their throats like true barbarians. Bjorn thought these guys were going to do something important, and he was worried he might miss a necessary step of sorts. But they were just trying to get drunk. He was angry looking at them, wasting his time. So he slammed his hand on the table and told them that he had somewhere else to be. Karak was shocked upon hearing this. The whole crowd became angry when they heard this. It looked as if they would kill him because he is the protagonist of the night and he is leaving. But they let him go happily while still calling him the best warrior. As he walked through the streets of Rathonia, he could hear the laughter and joy in people's voices. This place was peaceful, and he felt comfortable walking around. He thought that there were no monsters or humans that would harm him. As he looked around at stores, he felt the relaxation of being in a place that had rules and laws. In this place, even if he fell down on the ground, nothing would happen to him. Unlike the labyrinth, someone might even help him. Then he walked into a hotel to properly take a rest, then started thinking that this other world might be more barbaric than the 21st century Earth, but it was still peaceful. Then he got a room for himself so he could change and shower. All those near-death encounters in the labyrinth had made him realize that living in Rathonia might not be that bad. After he came out of the shower, feeling refreshed, and now all he wanted was a comfortable bed to sleep. But thoughts of his home were rushing through his mind. He still wanted to go home, even if there is no one to greet him at home. As nighttime approached, Bjorn woke at 9 at night, feeling fully refreshed and relaxed. He remembered that he came out of the labyrinth at noon, so he must have slept around 4 to 5 hours. It was now time to go meet Irwin at the Black Whale Tavern. But an old man told him that the Black Whale Tavern was sold off 10 years ago. Bjorn was shocked to hear this. Then the old man got more into detail. Apparently, the son of the original owner got into gambling addiction, ending up costing him the tavern, so the name and the owner both changed. Bjorn kind of expected it, but the game's version of Rathonia must have been years behind this one. Then he asked the old man the new name for the tavern. The old man told him the new name. The tavern was now called Python Path, and Bjorn had arrived at the place ready to meet Irwin. After seeing it, he wondered that the Black Whale Tavern used to look much different from this place in the game. He was glad that at least he can read this world's language, so he had to go to the library to fill his missing knowledge of this world. Then he entered, and this place was filled with people going wild. He immediately started looking around for Irwin, but she found him before he could. She called him over by waving her hand and saying his name. However, he noticed the elf lady from earlier was also there. The short-haired woman stared at him angrily, saying that he is the barbarian from earlier. He introduced himself as Jandal's son, Bjorn, and asked her who she was. She said she's the older sister of Irwin. Then Bjorn said that her name couldn't be older sister, so she just told him to call her Teresa. Then he remembered that Irwin's last name was Teresa, so this lady was trying to keep her real name hidden. He asked her reason why she was there. Then she stood up and slammed her hand on the table. She asked Bjorn why he called Irwin to such an inappropriate tavern like this last night, and then stood her up. making her stay the night out. And now he is asking what her purpose here is. She insults him, calling him a thick-skinned barbarian. Then Bjorn asks her what she means by it. Then she replied and said, "Are you trying to play dumb?" After hearing that, he got confused and asked Irwin how much time it has been since they got out from the labyrinth. She answers him that it had been 30 hours. Bjorn was feeling like an idiot right now. First, he thought it had been 4 to 5 hours. But nope, it had been a whole 30 hours. He realized the reason why he felt so refreshed after waking up. It was because he slept over a day. Seeing Irwin, he was feeling sorry, so he apologized and told them that he overslept. After hearing that, both of them were shocked, especially Irwin's sister, to see a barbarian apologizing. After that, in shock and embarrassment, she asks Bjorn why he would call Irwin. Bjorn could have given many long reasons, but he said he had no obligation to answer her. She can ask Irwin if she wants and piss her off again. She says he is just a beginner, and then Bjorn replies that she should throw away that kind of attitude unless she intends on taking care of Irwin all her life. Then she calls him a savage and slams a huge bag of 350,000 magic stones on the table. After seeing it, he feels like he is in K-dramas. Bjorn just stared at the stones, and this made Irwin's sister wonder why he wasn't taking it. She knew that he had a different reason for asking Irwin to meet. Does she think Bjorn is Johnny Bro or something who accepts any types of payments? Bjorn looked at Irwin and asked her if she agrees with her, but she doesn't know what to say. At least for a moment. However, Bjorn tells her that the deal for giving her the essences was that she'd help until he got the amount he wanted. After hearing that, Irwin was a little disappointed. Then Bjorn told her that they would also split the rewards 50-50. Irwin was overjoyed at first, but suddenly she realized something and asked for Bjorn's forgiveness because she wouldn't be able to go labyrinth exploring with him anymore. This made Bjorn wonder and puzzled because he thought that they were a really good and pretty compatible duo. Then her sister explained that she comes and explores the labyrinth with her from now on. She said that they were just following tradition and letting her go alone since it was her first time. However, she never intended on letting Irwin explore the labyrinth on her own. Bjorn now realized that she already had someone to accompany her through the labyrinth, and he was jealous of people with personal connections. Then she pushed the bag further towards him and said that if he understood, he should just take this pouch. But Bjorn stopped her and said that it was a result of splitting the essences in half. She responded that this was indeed because it's the loot they got together. But according to Bjorn, the bag was still lacking 280,000 stones because the promised share was 9-1. She smirked and slammed another bag with the remaining 280,000 stones on the table. He realized that this woman just tried to con him, and he kind of gets why the barbarians hated elves now. He immediately told her to get out if she is done here, so that he and Irwin can get on with the remaining private matters they needed to talk about. Of course, she wasn't going to move, but Irwin poked her on the elbow and told her that while she appreciated her coming here with her, she should go now. She wanted to thank Bjorn and say her goodbyes. This was one of those weird moments when you realize your younger sibling isn't a child anymore. However, she retaliated, pointing her finger at Bjorn and asking him to swear that he won't sleep with Irwin. If he agrees to swear, she will leave immediately. Irwin was embarrassed and shocked that she would say that out loud. Meanwhile, Bjorn wondered if that meant that all the other options were still on. She told him to swear. It didn't mean anything to him, but he swore on his warrior's honor. But Irwin looked most disappointed. After that, she decided to leave, but she still had something else to say to Bjorn. She turned around, thanked him for saving Irwin and keeping her safe in the labyrinth. Irwin slammed her head on the table in embarrassment and was worried that she might have upset her sister. She had never spoken up for herself like this before, and if she was mad at her now. Bjorn told her that she didn't look angry because she was smiling and told her not to worry about it. Irwin remembered and apologized to him that they won't be able to be a team again because she had made up her mind to work with her sister a long time ago. He told her that she didn't need to apologize. Bjorn was a considerate and rational guy. Even he wouldn't have rejected the offer either if some high-level elf offered to carry him. Then Irwin pulled out another bag of 63,000 magic crystals. These were from the loot that they got from the redhead and the crossbow guy, and she had already taken her share, so this was all that was left for him. She also told him that she left the 2 backpacks that she took off at her place, and there were a bunch of things there. So she invited him to take a look for himself tomorrow. Bjorn was surprised that she knows what he wanted to ask without him mentioning anything, but he was disappointed that he already had to give her up as his teammate. Then Irwin asked the last question, and she asked him how she should repay him. He was confused. Then she explained that she had told him that she would repay him for helping her. This is the reason why her sister made him swear that he wouldn't sleep with her. For a moment, Johnny Bro took him over. However, he just told her that he couldn't think of anything at the moment and then asked her if she wanted to eat anything. She told him that she wasn't hungry, so he decided that he would just order for himself because he was starving. This brought an idea to Irwin's mind. She said that she wanted alcohol. She hadn't taken a sip of alcohol yesterday because she wanted to drink the first return drink with him and truly celebrate with him. Bjorn remembered that return drinks were a culture in the game, especially for elves who only lived in their shrines until they were adults and put huge importance on the first return drink. He said that he was glad, but Irwin leaned in closer and told him that he's supposed to say thank you, and he said thanks to her. Irwin was happy. She told him that they went through so much together in the labyrinth, so it was a given that they share their first return drink with each other. She said that this is probably not his first return drink though, but he says that it was actually the first time he was going to have a return drink. She was surprised to know that he was serious when he told her that he was only 20 years old, which is the same age as her. She had initially thought that he might just be joking. He told her that it was his first time in the labyrinth as well. They start celebrating, and as they're celebrating, Irwin tells Bjorn that he did a great job. Then he tells her that she was great too. The two raised their mugs and slammed their mugs together in a toast. After a bit, their mugs were empty and their food was done. Irwin said that Bjorn was wearing a shirt today as she looked at him, and Bjorn only said in his mind that she was wearing a skirt today. Bjorn took a big sip of rum and decided that it was time for him to talk about the more important stuff now. Meanwhile, Irwin just kept admiring his ability to drink. He asked her if she still wanted to repay him, because he has thought of a way. She asked him what it was, but he said he couldn't tell her here, because he feared that the security would come after them. She blushed and looked at him and asked him if they should head up to his room. After they went to the Bjorn room, outside of Bjorn's door, moaning of a woman can be heard from inside. Inside, Bjorn told her to spread wider. He was sweating as he tried hard. As she moaned and screamed louder and said to let it go, he was just scratching her shoulder to check her stats effects. But Irwin screamed out loud from the pain, telling him that he was going to dislocate her shoulder because it had never gone that far back before. He still wanted to make sure though, and asked her if she was sure this was the breaking point. She swore on her family, crying and screaming, so he let her go and told her to rest for a bit. When he let her go, she was in complete shock at being alive. She thought she would lose her arm and life from all that. She looked annoyed and disappointed. She wanted to know if he asked her to come to his room just so he could check her abilities and stats. Then he said that ability use wasn't allowed within the city, and he really wanted to check the difference in her body after the essence. But in reality, he wanted to check the difference between the game and real life. He did this because Dungeon and Stone was not a user-friendly game. There were 3 main stats: body, mind, and ability stats. However, there was a plus icon on the side of each of the main stats, and when you press it, there are thousands of detailed stats. For example, if stamina were to increase, you could carry heavier items and perform better in physical attacks. This was the reason that different characters were capable of different things, despite the numbers of their stats being the same. Bjorn has come to learn of this because he practically put his whole life into the game. But there were still stats that had effects he still did not know about. Irwin was hoping and asking if there is something else they are going to do. Meanwhile, Bjorn was there wondering about the obsession stat that came with the essence Irwin ate. He doesn't know much about it except that it was a low-ranking stat in the mind stat, and that's all he knew about it. So he asked her if she felt a change in her mindset after she left the labyrinth. Did she start overthinking about something or having patience issues? He needed to know more. She wasn't sure. Still, she remembered that she had a desire for cookies right as soon as she came out of the labyrinth. She did not like them before, but she ate a bunch of them when she came back. He wondered if the obsession stat increased desire, which is probably a given. There were still other stats he didn't know about, so he had to take it into consideration when choosing the essence. Maybe this is the reason why she is so horny for Bjorn, because of the obsession stat. As he was thinking, the horny elf pulled his shirt and said she was sleepy. There were still things he wanted to check, but he couldn't anymore, so they decided to sleep, putting out all the candles in the room. Bjorn closed his eyes, ready to relax. In that moment, he remembered something he had sworn on. As Irwin slept leaning on his chest, he remembered that her sister had made him swear not to sleep with her. But he said to himself that she probably meant the other kind of sleeping together. They got up early in the morning and had brought all of the loot back to Bjorn's inn. Irwin asked Bjorn if he was going to sell everything. Bjorn told her that he was going to sell most of it, except for a few items. Irwin had her eye on a piece of gear, a leather outfit, and a belt. She asked him if she could have it. He told her that she can have it if she subtracts its cost from her share, and she agreed. Later on, they went to a merchant shop where they sold all of the extra equipment for a good amount of money. The sword was sold for 350,000 stones. Later, Bjorn sold some more stuff for 180,000 stones. Then they sold the backpacks, which went for a whopping 250,000 stones. After a few more visits to different shops and merchants, they had a solid amount of money in their hands. The bags of money had piled up, and they had earned a total of 1,450,000 stones. As they held the bags of money in their hands, Irwin was shocked after seeing that much money, but she earned just change compared to Bjorn. He really is a heartless man. Bjorn gets almost 1.4 million stones after subtracting Irwin's share because he also killed a man alone before meeting her. He had never made this much money in the game's start before. This was a nice start for him. They walked out into the street. Bjorn told her that this is where they should part. This surprised Irwin. Then he wondered why she was surprised, because they had already decided to go their separate ways. He told her that they're taking the same route, so they should walk to the central square together. Even though she agreed to it, she really wanted to spend more time with him. As they walked up to the town square, they saw a huge crowd of people standing around a guillotine blade. Bjorn and Irwin walked up there. A guard screamed out loud, stating that there was an execution happening and that everyone should back off. A man was forced into the guillotine, his head and hands poking out as his face sealed up with bandages. These people hadn't committed any serious crimes. Their only crime was that they hadn't been able to pay the taxes. The execution began, and the guard pulled at the rope. Rathonia was the final remaining city of the other world that ended at the hands of a witch's curse. The only place to get resources in this limited space was the labyrinth. Therefore, those who couldn't pay taxes were executed to decrease the number of mouths to feed. As the blood hit the pavement from those who were executed, a bunch of people came running and holding pieces of bread. They dipped their bread in the blood and started eating it. Irwin was barely holding herself from throwing up, asking Bjorn why they were dipping bread into the blood. He told her that there's a legend that everyone who drinks the blood of the executed will gain great financial luck. Bjorn asked Irwin how much the taxes were for the first year. She told him that it's 700,000 stones for non-humans. He realized that it was a bit off from the game, but similar. He asked her what it is from the second year and afterwards. She told him that it was 800,000 stones, and they were exchanging fees too. This was the same number as the game. As they stood there, looking at them devour the bread with blood sauce, Bjorn started thinking about tax rise each year of work. And if he can't get back to his real life, and if he can't compete with the increasing taxes, his blood might be the one that people are dipping their bread into. And to avoid that, he has to save money. And for that, he needs to become an explorer that can at least reach the 6th floor. The The scene switches to the library. As he walked in, he wondered why people were staring at him because he was a barbarian in the library. Then he saw Einar using a book in the library as a pillow and sleeping. Well, it's good that she's okay, because we didn't see her after he came out with the other barbarians. He walked up to her and poked her, wondering why she was there. She woke up, saliva drooling down her face as she looked at him. Jorn looked at her and said that he was glad to see she was doing fine. She gave him a smile, telling him that she feels the same. He told her to lower her voice because they were in a library. She answered that she never expected to see her fellow barbarian here. Jorn asked her what she was doing here. She told him that she was here because of what he said to her earlier. He told her that she should think before acting, and she wanted to gather more knowledge in order to think properly. Jorn was surprised because she is different from the rest. She tells him that while she was in the labyrinth, she realized that the monsters weren't the only enemies they had to encounter. As she's speaking, Bjorn thinks about how if there was any regular barbarian in her place, they would be bragging about their experience. Instead, she said that this is why she decided to study, but she found reading to be very, very difficult for her. So she wanted to learn how to read and write properly, and she was thinking of going to their shrine so she could learn all that from the elders. He asked her if she was going right now, and she said that if she doesn't, she would forget about it. As she's walking, she remembers that she promised to repay him for his advice if they came back alive from the labyrinth. She told him that if he ever needed anything, all he had to do was ask her at the Angry Bull Tavern. He looked at her and said that he would definitely come to her if he needed. He was simultaneously hoping that she doesn't forget about this promise in a couple of days, because he was probably going to need her help very soon. Anyways, he needed to find a book, and he didn't know how to do that in a place this big. His eyes went straight towards a girl sitting at the front desk, which is the librarian. He walked up to her as she slept on the job. He tried speaking to her, and the girl woke up while raising her head. She looked at him and asked him what he needed. He tells her that he's looking for a book, one that is related to history, but she interrupts him and casts some spells, conjuring up a weird ball of light that starts floating towards Bjorn. He's confused about what magic she cast. Then the ball of light shimmers its way into his chest. Bjorn is unsure of what changed because he doesn't feel any different. The librarian tells him that now he can find any book that he's looking for in the library. She also tells him that he's allowed to borrow any book, but he has to put it back where he takes it from. Bjorn tries to ask for details about the magic, but the librarian already becomes the Sleeping Beauty. After that, he walks around in the library. He quickly realizes how the magic works. It's quite simple. All he has to do is walk around, and the book he wants to read would shine. Now he understands why there's only one librarian in a library this big, and she still has time to sleep. After that, he starts reading books. The first book, titled The Fallen World, talks about the history from thousands of years ago, where no living beings could live due to a witch's curse, and the last remaining fortress, Rathonia, was the only place that managed to avoid the disaster. The royal family opened up a dimension for the people who were starving to death because of limited resources. That became the labyrinth. This was similar to the game's prologue. He already knows it. Then the second book he read was Alchemy's Basics. It talks about how magic crystals from monsters can be made into bread, water, steel, and such. They are literally changing the atomic structure. Isn't it too much? Well, it was also too much for Bjorn to understand the theory, so he just memorized it for now. After that, the next book was Is Sacred War 3. It talks about how the barbarians and the elves come to hate each other. The fourth book he really wants to read about was The Evil Spirits of the Abyss. The evil spirits refer to those people who had come from different dimensions and had possessed other people's bodies. This was technically correct, but it doesn't describe why it happens. It's clear that the temples and the royal family had tried their hardest to get rid of this phenomenon. Well, what I think is that someone from the royal family is also one of the people from Earth, like Earth. and then he made it public to get rid of any competition. Well, it's just my theory. He learned one thing from it, and that is, as long as he didn't say any of the forbidden words, he would be pretty much okay. The fifth book, titled On the Death of the King, is about the first ever king, also called the Immortal King, Labyrinth III. It talks about how he died over 150 years ago. Basically, he lived for thousands of years, since he was the first king, and I think it's also related to evil spirits and my theory. The game's story started after his death. So that means Bjorn was 150 years after the game timeline. This is why his knowledge of the game world kept contradicting the reality in this world. Previously, I think I said it was a 10-year gap, but it was actually a 150-year gap. After that, he moved on to the book about the dimension's instability of observation records. While reading this book, Bjorn had a realization that this might be the book that the blondie who had saved him had read. This book mentions a theory that says entering a portal in the moment that it was closing could have something to do with that instability. Perhaps that is why that happened to him. That made him feel depressing, because he had no one else to blame but himself for the torture he had to go through. It had gotten dark outside, so he decided to read the rest later. After that, he goes back to his room and thinks about how it had been 3 whole days since he had left the labyrinth. The labyrinth opens up on every first day of the month at exactly midnight. So he has 27 days left to prepare himself, and he has to find a new member for his party from tomorrow onwards. In early morning, Bjorn woken up by loud knocking noises on his room's door. It was Irwin who was knocking the door. He hurried to get out of bed, then he opened the door to see why she was standing outside. He asked her why she was banging on his door so early in the morning. He was just saying, but suddenly he felt an incredibly powerful gust of wind. It was Irwin's new contract. She was excited to show Bjorn that she had succeeded with the new Sprit contract. She told him that she had tried 10 times with the spirit stone that her sister gave her, and it worked out, and it's a wind spirit. It was perfect match with her fire sprit. He congratulates her, but in his mind, he was think about that how rich her sister and her family is, because Sprit Stone is an item that lets you sign a contract with a Sprit with 10% possibility. But they are pretty expansive, and she tried in times. And before she was saying she have a little brother to take care, acting like a poor, helpless lady. Well, whatever. After he saw it, he told her to get rid of it. She wanted to show him more, telling him that she hadn't shown him everything she can do. Then her to look what mess she made in his room. After seeing it, she started to apologize. She promised to clean up the whole mess right away. A little while later, Irwin sat on the bed looking tired after she was done cleaning up the whole room. Bjorn looked at the room and wondered how incredibly talented she was at cleaning, even though she had told him before that she was great at it. He congratulated her on having a contract with the spirit, and she was really happy as she thanked him. But he is a stud. He told her that she shouldn't have come to him just to show him this. He tells her that she should have spent her time much more wisely, because she would have to go back into the labyrinth in 26 days. While Irwin agreed with his logic, she had wanted him to be the first to know about her achievement. Bjorn wondered why she felt so attached to him and speculated that it might be due to an obsession trait she gained from a goblin archer essence. He wanted to maintain a business-like relationship, but also expressed his willingness to be there for her as a friend and fellow comrade. As the morning continued, Bjorn planned to use his time effectively. He went to a place called the Angry Bull, where many barbarians were staying. He was welcomed by cheers from the crowd, being recognized as the strongest warrior. Inside the inn, a barbarian warrior informed Bjorn that he could stay for a cheap price due to multiple barbarians sharing rooms. Bjorn revealed that he was there to see Feneline's third daughter. He was still forgetting the names. Then that barbarian corrected him, because Einar was Feneline's second daughter, and I think it is very important. Einar arrived to the scene, and that guy told her that Bjorn was looking for her. She walked up to Bjorn and asked him why he had come to see her. Bjorn told her that he had a favor to ask her, which is that he wanted to fight her. She asked him if this was for training purposes, and he said yes, he needed to get stronger because he knew he wouldn't be able to survive with his current fighting skills. Einar told him that it wasn't really a favor. If you wanted that, all he had to do was come out to the field where there were already dozens of sparring. She told him that as long as it wasn't in the morning, she was ready to fight whenever he wanted. He told her that they should begin right away. The crowd was ready to see some combat as Bjorn dashed towards her. He knew that he came to learn, but he wasn't intending to lose either. The fight began, and Bjorn rushed toward Einar with his full power. Einar was also ready. She swung her sword, and Bjorn's body hit the ground with his face bruised and nose bleeding. Crowd starting to shout that Einar is the best warrior now. She walked up to him and asked him if he was okay. He answered that he was fine and asked her for one more fight. And just like that, they keep fighting for an entire day. They both are huffing like a dog. But Einar asked Bjorn that it's fine if he wanted to keep going, but she would like to rest for a bit. I don't know why, but to me it's looked like she is also from another world. It's just my thoughts. He told her that was enough for today, and asked her if she was going to go to the labyrinth alone next time around as well. And she nodded. She told him that she was too broke to form a party, so this was her only option. Bjorn immediately asked if she'd like to be his teammate, and he would keep 80 of the profits, but that he would pay for the party fees and everything. But in reply, she told him to shut up, as she had already heard enough. Bjorn stated to feel nervous. He was worried she wouldn't agree to be his teammate, so he brought up other ideas for her to stick around. But Einar just grabbed his hand and told him that she wouldn't understand even if he tried to explain it to her. However, she trusted him to join the party. He told her that he was looking forward to working with her. Next day, Bjorn headed to the barbarian shrine, a place of great importance to the barbarians. Here they saw the chief of the tribe. I like this old man's smile. He welcomed both Einar and Bjorn. Old man asked him if he had come to learn how to read and write, like Einar had. But Bjorn denied it. He was not here for that. He was come here something more. That thing called the spirit seal, or more specifically, he wanted a spirit seal called the Undead seal. In this world, every species have specific trait to them. Elves enter contracts with spirits in order to borrow their powers, and dwarves receive the blessing of armor, which increases the effects of all their items, and the beast people enter into contracts with ancient beasts, called spirit beasts. As for the barbarians, they had the spirit seal. The chief got way too close to Bjorn's face, aggressively asking him how he even found out about that. The chief knew that usually that wouldn't be common knowledge to a young barbarian. So how did he find it? This had made the chief suspicious. But it doesn't matter though, since Bjorn had gone to the library to find out more information about the seal. So he told him that he read about it in a book, and that he had heard that spirit seals were greatly helpful in the war against the elves. The chief's attitude immediately turned. He told Bjorn that he was proud of him and Einar for reading books. He said that he had no reason to deny the spirit seal. Bjorn immediately wanted it, but before he could even finish his sentence, the old man told him the spirit seal would cost him 800,000 stones, as the chief looked almost giddy, knowing that Bjorn could never afford that. He looked at him like an accomplished person, almost as if he had won this scenario. Bjorn told him that he would pay for it, surprising Einar on how he could even afford that, because she was not there when Bjorn's stones counted. This was a careful plan by Bjorn, you see. Spirit seal was difficult to obtain at the start of the games because of its prices, especially because the higher your rank would get, the rarer the ingredients he would need on top of the already large sum of money. But now he have money. He dropped 4 bags, one bag, which had 500,000 stones, and the other 3 bags had 100,000 stones each. The chief was shocked this time, and he asked Bjorn about where Bjorn got that much money. But Bjorn had already thought of a reason to tell him. If the old man didn't ask, Bjorn would have been disappointed. So he began to tell him a story that he would love. About an injured elf that he found on the first floor. He told the chief that he used the elf as his slave and used her to acquire as many stones as he could. Then he fed her a essence and got even more money from her sister as payment. Those elves were completely helpless against the might of Jorns. Well, it's actually true if you look at it from other perspective. Old man liked it as he laughed out loud, claiming that he hadn't laughed this hard in years. What's more, a whole group of barbarians came around to appreciate his act, and Jorn liked the attention. Nonetheless, the old man had a reward for him. He liked Bjorn's story so much that he gave him 2 coins, each one worth 100,000 stones. So he made 200 zero stones by just telling a story. Jorn raised his fist in celebration, letting the barbarians hear what they wanted. He loved the attention. He felt good inside when they gave him compliments. Let's learn a bit more about the spirit seals. You see, spirit seals are strengthening techniques. They make the body absorb the essence of magical ingredients and give the body a special power. The barbarians had a ritual of tattooing babies when they were newborn while their souls are clean, so that the soul pathways are still visible even as adults. This why all barbarians are tattooed. And here I am thinking that because they look cool with them. After that, as he sat in front of the shaman, guiding him towards the path of the spirit seal, he received one last warning. The shaman told him explicitly that there was no way out of this once he received this spirit seal. He cannot receive another kind of spirit seal if he chooses this path. Bjorn had accepted it. This undead seal is the essence of a tanker barbarian. So the shaman began the process by raising his needle at Bjorn's back. He knew that this was the right choice. He had played the game too long to not know this. Red rays of light began to pour out, entering the tattoos on Bjorn's back. He was starting to feel it. He felt it on his back, and then he felt it through his entire body. The pain was overwhelming. It hurt so bad that he wanted to scream. But he had to endure this every time he wanted to upgrade his spirit seal. After long pain, he activated the first level of the seal, and his natural regenerative skill had increased greatly. He thanked the shaman for the seal, but got shaman shocked after hearing that, and start laughing, because this was the first time a warrior thanked a witch doctor. Bjorn was confused about why is he laughing, or did he did something wrong. Bjorn quickly started walking out before the shaman start getting suspicious. The morning was here, and Bjorn headed out to the commercial district to buy necessary equipment. After training with Einar for quite a long time, he had learned that he definitely wasn't fit to be a swordsman. His plan was to only use shield techniques after a point. So building proficiency in swordsmanship would be pointless. This is why he was looking for a one-handed blunt weapon. The shopkeeper showed him a large collection of blunt weapons that barbarians prefer. These were good-looking weapons that Bjorn knew would fit a barbarian's taste, but he asked for a more normal-looking one. The shopkeeper handed him a simple bronze mace, which immediately caught his eye. It was a small mace that cost 220,000 stones. After that, he did some more shopping, buying himself a custom fit helmet and a half armor plate that fit him perfectly as well, which cost him 530,000 stones. Now he was left with only 50,000 stones. A lot of time had passed since he had left the labyrinth, and his daily routine eventually set itself. He also met Irwin every day. He would wake up at 7 in the morning and get some breakfast with Irwin. Then he headed to the library and read until afternoon. After that, he always ate lunch at new locations, just so he could gather information that wasn't readily available in the books of the library, listening to adventurers speak. At around 5, he would make his way to the end where the barbarians were living, and he would train there. By the 7th day of training, he started to go up against different barbarians, testing out his strength against the lot. There were no techniques or systematic combat skills involved in these duels. It was just a fight with your instincts, and that was good practice for the labyrinth. After regular training, he had become strong enough that he could even win against Einar sometimes in duels. During the duel, She would compliment him on his skills improving. Although when he beat her, he would tell her that she had a pattern of fighting, but since it was habitual, Einar had a hard time changing her patterns. At night, he would get home and wash up, after which it was time for Irwin to come see him again. He walked out of the shower and saw her there. He asked her how she could make the 1-hour walk journey every single day, but she was usually just happy to see him and wanted to eat dinner with him. They would be together till 11 p.m., after which she bid him goodnight as it was time for her to leave. After that, she stood there for a second, looking back at him and telling him good luck for the labyrinth, because the day was almost there. They were going back in tomorrow. As he wished Irwin the same for her time in the labyrinth, Bjorn realized how quickly the time had passed. There were only 24 hours left before the labyrinth gates opened. I clear it to you if you are confused. Bjorn can't see these pop-up windows. The next day at 8:10, they went to the Explorer Guild to receive the Unity magic. They arrived inside the building and walked up to the counter. He asked to receive the Unity magic. The cashier lady looked at them and wanted to make sure that it was just the two of them. Bjorn acknowledged it, telling her that she was correct, and in return, she told them to place their hands on the crystal. As they put their hands on the crystal, the lady proclaimed that 2 rank 9 explorers would have to pay 15,000 stones. It was an expensive fee considering that this was just a one-time use thing. However, it was a necessary thing to get. The Unity magic had only one purpose. It existed so that you would spawn at the same spot in the labyrinth as your teammate. Bjorn asked the woman at the counter about what determined the rank of explorers. She told him that they judge it by the amount of essence in one's soul, which made Bjorn curious if the price would also increase with his rank. The lady told him that he was right and that it was only valid for 24 hours from now. Anyway, after they got their Unity magic, it was time to go and eat. Einar looked like she was in love at the look of the food, wondering what the hell this was. Well, Bjorn had ordered the most expensive meal at the tavern as a last feast before entering the labyrinth. He told her that this meal cost 800 stones, as she drooled at the sight. He told her to try it, and just as she took one bite, it was all well worth it. It was almost as if she found herself to be in heaven. It felt like a dream to her. The food was way too good. This meal had motivated her. She wanted to work harder from this moment onward so that she could earn a lot of money and get this meal every day. This makes Bjorn think about what she is eating until now. After that, at midnight, there were only 10 minutes before the labyrinth would open. The guards were stopping people from entering before it began. As Bjorn was noticing the size of the humongous portal, he heard a loud commotion in the background. It was a group of freshly turned warriors. They were cheering Parthun as a great warrior. Bjorn wondered how they even managed to find their way every time. I think there is another worlder like Bjorn every time in the new group. Again, it's just my thinking. Einar, on the other hand, got sentimental looking at them. It reminded her of the good old days, which was literally just a month ago. The announcer told everyone that they could now enter. Einar got excited and told Bjorn that they should go now, but he told her to wait. Instead, he was trying to explain how an unstable portal could help them spawn closer to the second floor's gate. But she just told him to shut up about it and tell her what to do once it's time. After all, she had blind faith, and she knew that she was too dumb to understand his explanation. There was only 1 minute remaining until the gate closed, and she got a bit nervous that they weren't going to make it in time. Bjorn noticed how much smaller it had gotten than how it initially started. It was about the same size when he first went into it. As well, he was just waiting for the guard to say that it was about to close, which would be his cue. That's when he heard the guard scream out that the gate would close soon, and Bjorn was ready. He told Einar to go, and the two began to dash towards the gate. It was time for them to enter, and even though the guard tried to stop them, telling them it's dangerous as they passed through the gate, they had found themselves in complete darkness. As Bjorn opened his eyes, he knew that he was right. Bjorn was right. It was the dark region of the first floor, which made Einar panic because she couldn't see anything. He came prepared, though. He had brought torches with him this time. As he entered, he saw a large concrete slab, which made Einar a bit confused as she asked him what that was. Bjorn explained that this was a monument, which they can use to open the portal gate to the second floor. This time around, they weren't going to stick around on the first floor at all. They were going to the second floor immediately. You see, beyond the barbarian, Bjorn was an expert gamer, and every pro needs to know how to utilize and exploit bugs. Bjorn opened the portal to the second floor, and after seeing this, Einar was in shock. As I explained before, Bjorn gained 2 experience points because he opened the portal first. And because of this, Bjorn's level increased, and he is finally level 2 now. And also, the maximum capacity of essences has been increased by 1. Let's talk about this later. Both of them entered the second floor. Einar asked Bjorn how they got here so quickly. The chief said that it takes at least 3 days to get to the second floor. Bjorn answered that he read about it in a book. Einar complimented him and said that he is amazing. This time, the second floor they came to isn't the Goblin Forest, but the land of the dead. Then Bjorn asked Einar if she is feeling something. She asked what he is saying. Then Bjorn told her that it feels like something is filling his entire body from inside his veins. After hearing that, Einar congratulated him and told him that his spirit status must have gone up. Then Bjorn understood that this is leveling up. There are also levels in Dungeon and Stone and B, which are needed when using skills increase with level. The amount of essences one can consume also increases with each level. Since Bjorn is now level 2, he can take 2 essences. Einar was still confused because his spirit status increased without killing any monsters. Then, Bjorn explained to her that it was because opening that portal counted as an accomplishment. Experience. It's called accomplishments in this world, but you can only gain it once per type of monster. After a certain point, it becomes very difficult to obtain, and one way to break that wall is to open the first portal with a speedrun. The experience earned from opening the portal doesn't stop after the first time, so if used well, it's an easy way to gain experience. So, he has to keep this trick a secret. So, he told Einar that it's a secret. So if anyone asks, tell them that it took them 2 days to get to the second floor. Einar was confused, but she agreed. After that, they moved out from there before the experienced explorers get there. First, I was thinking, why is his helmet weird? Now, I understand why. So, it is used for holding the torches. It's quite practical indeed. Then Einar touches Bjorn's helmet, and it's not hot. Then Bjorn explains that it's because torches are magic tools and stay on for 3 days once turned on. That's why it's possible to use them like that. If not, Bjorn's head will be roasted alive. The land of the dead has stronger monsters on average than Goblin Forest. However, there are no traps, so it's less tricky than Goblin Forest. In other words, this place is much better for 2 barbarians. Einar saw the ghouls. There were just 3 of them because it's just the first day. There will be about 3 times this amount on the 3rd day. This made Einar excited, so she decided to take care of them herself, and she finished them in a single swing. After that, she started boasting, saying that the second floor is easy. Then suddenly, a sound of laughing and screaming came. She got scared and held Bjorn's hand tight, asking him what that sound was. Then, Bjorn explained to her that it was a banshee, a ghost monster. They don't attack first most of the time, so it's best to ignore them. And even if they try to attack them, their attack won't work on banshees anyway. Plus, if they attack first, they'll be cursed, and the banshees will be after them until they're out of the labyrinth. After hearing about the curse, Einar got too scared and started praising Bjorn, saying that he was a wise warrior or it could have been bad. Then suddenly, a sound came from behind her, and she got so scared that she almost choked Bjorn to death. But thankfully, they were just skeletons, and she is back to her normal self again. Bjorn tried to give her advice to go for the core, but she completely destroyed them and then asked him if he was saying something. What can poor Bjorn say now? But what's more important is that he also gained 1 experience point. After that, they traveled north for almost 8 hours, and naturally, they were able to come across new monsters. Elder ghouls, which are double the size of normal ghouls, skeleton mutants called skeleton warriors, and even skeleton archers. But there was not much difficulty. There were only a few of them in numbers, because it's just the first day, and Bjorn's battle ability had grown quite a bit. First of all, mace. His weapon now was the perfect size and weight for him, so he was able to crush their skulls much more easily than the hammer. Next, the armor, which reduced the surface area he had to protect using the shield, letting him fight much more aggressively. The steel helmet might not protect him too well from a crossbow, but it easily stopped arrows from half-broken bows. He might be good at destroying the enemies, but there is one more who's just as good or better. Bjorn feeling refreshed compared to the fights he participated in with Irwin. Bjorn's arm was injured, but it healed soon. Then Einar asked Bjorn the reason for it, or is this the spirit seal thing? He answered that yes, it was. The Undead Seal's level 1 effect is better natural regeneration. It takes only about 1 minute to heal 0.5 centimeters deep. Plus, his stamina itself recovers quickly too, increasing his endurance, meaning making him a perfect punching bag. Now, the ground is no longer wet. The terrain is different, and they are ready for the new adventure and new enemies with their heroic pose. I think I've seen this pose somewhere, but I can't quite pinpoint where. They were just giving a pose when suddenly a sound came from behind. This time, it's an 8th rank monster, Death Fiend. It's a scary monster that eats light, and you won't notice it until it comes near you. Bjorn ordered Einar to attack its head. Einar was a little scared, but she said that she trusts him, and they started attacking the monster. But Death Fiend is not an easy opponent to beat. Its skin is as hard as a hard stone, and it's also super strong. Einar tried attacking its neck, but she was not strong enough to cut its head. She started panicking, asking Bjorn what to do. Death Fiend is known for its good defense. Plus, Death Fiends have a passive skill called Body Preservation, which helps him heal faster. Because of Einar's attack, Death Fiend used his active skill, Call of the Dead, to summon ghouls. Difficulty suddenly rose. It looks like Death Fiend's essence is great to become a necromancer. Bjorn ordered Einar to take care of the ghouls first, and he faced the Death Fiend in the meantime. Bjorn was holding the Death Fiend while Einar was fighting the ghouls. After Einar killed all the ghouls, she attacked the Death Fiend, which distracted it and gave Bjorn a chance to attack its head. Bjorn was feeling good after attacking it, but the Death Fiend attacked Bjorn pretty hard. Bjorn also attacked it with full power, but it healed quite fast. Bjorn couldn't attack fast enough to catch up with its regenerative speed, so he was thinking of giving up on killing it and going for 9th rank monsters. But suddenly, Einar lifted the Death Fiend's leg. Bjorn understood that she is trying to mess with its balance, so he also attacked its other leg and flipped it down on its back. Because of its body, it was unable to get up on its own. This showed who the real villain here was. After that, both Bjorn and Einar started beating its head like they were pounding a rice cake. This reminded me of a Doraemon movie when they got to the moon, where Bunny makes rice cakes. They were really enjoying it, and just like that, they defeated the Death Fiend. It's lying behind a big stone. Einar was happy, but Bjorn told her that it's only worth 100 stones. But with ghouls, it's 300. She was shocked that one Death Fiend is worth only 100. Then Einar asked Bjorn how much the bread they had at the inn was. Bjorn answered that the cream pie would about 300 stones. She was happy, and said that she can enjoy one of those each time she kills a Death Fiend. This motivated Einar, but I think she forgot that they are splitting 8. Bjorn gets 80, and Einar only 20. Well, whatever. Bjorn was also happy because she was so active while Irwin was a bit passive. After that, they went around the area hunting Death Fiends. As soon as they came across one, they attacked its 2 legs to bring it down and started pounding its head until it died. They hunted about 70 death fiends like that all day. At the beginning of Dungeon and Stone, where the essence drop rate is very low, most people build their base on the essence they pick up. That's why he aimed for a death fiend's essence, which would synergize with his undead seal and has a nice passive skill. But they haven't gotten any. On the second day, the death fiends now appear in pairs, but they had learned how to deal with them already, so it wasn't as difficult as he expected. They knocked one down and worked together to knock down the other one. Of course, if they can't kill the death fiends quickly, they might be surrounded by ghouls, putting them in danger. Death fiends don't chase enemies out of their territory, so they just need to run like hell. Starting in the afternoon, the death fiends started appearing in groups of 3. So when the second day was coming to an end, they stopped hunting death fiends. They decided to take rest. So they found a cozy place to rest, but another team showed up. Bjorn tried to scare them off, but before he could do anything, Einar scared them and quickly ran from there. Then she ordered Bjorn to move somewhere else because they now know their location. They needed to find a different place to camp. It looks like they don't like humans at all. Maybe something similar to what happened to Irwin happened to her in the last labyrinth exploration. They were just searching for a good place to camp when suddenly the screams of people asking for help came. They were shocked because these were not the sounds someone makes when attacked by a monster. Instead, it sounded like a person killing another. They tried to run away from there, but a voice stopped them.